Episode 5. The TikTok ban is still alive, but are the Democrats? Let's get to it. What's really?
You are now tuned in to the WRR podcast.
What's really
Breaking news.
What's really we need. What's really your victory. What's really
Translating media.
All right, let's go ahead and get into it. As we were talking about, there was a ban on TikTok, right? Passed in the House, now it's going to the Senate. Let's see what they're talking about.
A bill that could lead to a ban of TikTok in the U.S. appears to be gaining some momentum in the Senate. Well, the House approved the legislation last week. Many lawmakers, along with the Biden administration, believe TikTok poses a national security risk because the China-owned company, well, they could share American user data. TikTok insists it never has and never would. A bill that could lead...
That's cap. That's 100% cap. Right? They're so worried about a foreign country coming and seeing our information. Why is the border wide open? Right? Is there actual CCP propaganda on TikTok? You can ask any TikTok user. You don't see that, right? Okay, so let's get some information from the actual congressional floor. Let's see what she's talking about.
Adversary Controlled Applications Act. Foreign adversaries like the Chinese Communist Party pose the greatest national threat of our time. TikTok access to 177 million American users.
That's what they're mad about. They're mad about the amount of users and the amount of time that the users spend on the app that they're not able to access, right? And they're mad that they're not able to push their propaganda, right? Almost everything is damn near propaganda nowadays, even on TikTok. You know what I'm saying? About this topic right here, banning TikTok. It's all fear mongering. A lot of this shit is not true. That's why I'm showing this to show actual information. Like this is from the congressional floor, right? We're gonna get into it some more.
Makes it a valuable propaganda tool for the CCP to exploit. Over the past week, we saw in real time how the CCP controlled TikTok used its influence and power to force users to contact their representatives if they even wanted to continue using the app.
So now they're blaming the Chinese government for having y'all contact y'all representatives, right? Just listen to the wording right there. Your representative, meaning that person is supposed to represent you and your interests. Yet they're mad that an app is showing you how to contact the people that are supposed to be representing you, right? So with that being said, we have one like that, and it's not Chinese based, all right? It's called the WRR Senate cards. You go to TLM 365, okay, that is this website right here, and we have these Senate cards, which has each senator from each state listed in alphabetical order by state with active hyperlinks to all social media, as well as their phone number and the contact information for either their legislative director or for their chief of staff. All right, so we got Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, phone number, and email. Not playing. All right, so if you don't want TikTok to be banned, or if there's another bill that you want to put the pressure on your senator, right here, this page will be updated after the election this year, but this is currently the 118th Congress. Everything is up to date. All right, so let's get back into it, right? On March 13th, 2024, the House passed the bill that could ban TikTok. All right. So essentially, I wanted to pull this up first, just as an example, right? So this is HR 231. So when I looked up the bill to ban TikTok, this was the first thing that came up actually, right? This is not even the actual bill. This was a bill introduced by Brian Babin, right? Brian Babin reminds me of when I first came to Atlanta, and one of my homies, you know what I'm saying, they said if the tree is trash, then that's some babbage. All right, not gabbage, but babbage. Like get that shit out of here. You know what I'm saying? So Brian Babin, right, introduced this bill. It's been introduced. It's still in committee. It hasn't made it out of committee. Has not been put up to a vote. But this is essentially a bill that prohibits an institution of higher education from receiving federal funds unless the IHE takes certain actions to ban the use of the social media video application TikTok, right? So they hate on TikTok hard. They don't want TikTok on campuses. They don't want them in your home. They don't want nothing to do with TikTok because its propaganda game is just as strong as ours, right? So here we have the actual bill in question, HR 7521. Now this is on congress.gov where you can check and see the status of the bill. So here you can see it was introduced, it got voted on, and it passed the House. Now it needs to pass the Senate, all right? Now, this bill in a nutshell is saying that TikTok needs to be sold or divested into an American company so basically we can control it, right? That's the only way it can stay here. If that does not happen, then TikTok is out of here, right? For those thinking like, oh, I can maybe get a VPN, go around, it's not even going to be worth it. If this passes the Senate, TikTok is out of here. Joe Biden said, I'm signing the bill, all right? Now, Chuck Schumer, who is the current majority leader in the Senate, right? He's like, he's feeling iffy about it. Chuck Schumer, he's from New York, right? So if you want to go back to the Senate cards, if you don't know who Chuck Schumer is, right? We scroll down to New York. And there he goes, right? Chuck Schumer, 118 Congress, all his information is right here. So if you're in New York, right, you want to hit up Chuck Schumer, here you go. TLM365.com, right? So Chuck Schumer says he might make some changes, but it's eventually going to get put on the floor as a bill. Now, second issue, right? Second issue is that there's rumors that China has laws that will prohibit them selling intellectual property to a foreign country, right? So let's look that up, right? So right here, we're at trade.gov. It is a government website. And this article is speaking about protecting intellectual property, specifically to China. It offers a China IPR toolkit, right? But this is referencing if your intellectual property is basically being threatened in China, right? I don't know how I lost the website right there. This one? Yeah, right. So this is basically protecting our intellectual property in China. What we're looking for is, does China have a law stating that it can't sell TikTok to us, right? So it's not going to be, this is a very nice pamphlet, right? But this is basically, this talks about the environment in China around this, right? We're looking for something a little more specific. So let's go to lexology.com, right? So lexology.com, as you can see, I was at the bottom of the page, but it's a fairly lengthy article from 2021, and it's about intellectual property issues for foreign enterprises acquiring Chinese companies, right? So this would be exactly like ByteDance, which is the company that owns TikTok that we're saying we need to buy, right? So there's a whole bunch of stuff in here: patent law, copyright law, trademark law, right? Shouts out all the attorneys reading through all this stuff, right? So we let's go to the bottom. Let's try to get some consensus here, right? Because ain't nobody trying to read all that on the podcast. In conclusion, to summarize the above, if during the process of acquiring a Chinese company, the foreign enterprise buyer, aka the United States, becomes aware that the target company has or is using intellectual property licensed by others to ensure that the target company, if no intellectual property is transferred, or the company receiving the intellectual property can continue to enjoy complete usage rights to such intellectual property after the transaction, an effort must be made to understand the relevant laws and how they are practiced so that the appropriate language may be proposed when drafting and negotiating the purchase agreement. Now that sounds like a whole bunch of mumbo jumbo, right? But essentially, there is no specific law that states that China cannot sell their intellectual property. At least it's not stated here. You know, I'm sure there's a gajillion more things to go through, right, to verify that. But from this article, what it sounds like is there's some restrictions. There are some tools in place that, yes, could prevent this, but there's not a law that could outright prohibits this, right? Like there can be some negotiation done, right? As is with almost anything, right? So I'm going through all of this to show you actual information, because I remember on TikTok people saying like, oh, you know, China can't even sell this So it's almost 100% that TikTok is going to be banned, right? So that's why it's important to look at some of this stuff, right? That's on the Chinese side. This is the ACLU, which if you don't know what the ACLU is, it is the American Civil Liberties Union, basically a group of lawyers that fight for your civil rights. Mixed feelings. There's a lot of mixed feelings about the ACLU, but whatever. We're looking to see what they're saying about this because this is right up their alley, right? They have a very short article, but essentially it's talking about that the House of Representatives passed the HR 7521 bill to effectively ban TikTok in the United States, and states that it now is going to the Senate, but that the ACLU essentially is fighting against it, right? So these things are important, right? So is TikTok going to be banned? 50-50 chance. That's what I would say. It's a 50-50 chance. Okay, it's not 100% chance. Now, if TikTok or if China, excuse me, did have a y'all be nosy. So if TikTok did have if China had a law prohibiting the sale of TikTok to a foreign country, then yes, TikTok would be toast, right? But there's still a possibility it may stay. It's a 50-50. In my personal opinion, it's not leaning either way. Let's see what happens in the Senate. If it passes in the Senate, then I will give it like a 70-30 chance. If it passes in the Senate, I would say 70-30 chance of it getting banned, because who's going to acquire it? Who's going to put up that bread with group? And, China still has to approve it. So there's a lot going on there, right? But that is the TikTok bill. Again, the Senate cards. Go check it out. We will be presenting bills on a weekly basis that you can contact your senator about. All right, we're just starting with this one. What's the next topic? Yeah. But on to the next topic, some housekeeping and updates.